Sunday, July 14th, 1895, Samuel L. Clemens and party departed Elmira, New York, on board the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western, bound for Buffalo and then on to Cleveland. From Quarry Farm, moments before departing, he wrote his sister, "I have not been able to write. I've been in bed ever since we arrived here, May 25th, until 4 days ago, when I put on my clothes for the first time in 45 days to go to New York, barely capable of the exertion, to undergo the shame born of the mistake I made in establishing a publishing house. I can't make any more financial mistakes. I've nothing left to make them with. If Webster had paid me my dividend on the Grant book when he paid himself and Mrs. Grant, I should have been spared the humiliation of these days. However, I am still clean of dishonesty toward any man, but never mind, it would profit nothing to say it. Livy and Clara have gone down in the valley to take the train toward the Pacific coast, and I follow in 5 minutes. We leave Susie and Jean here at the farm. They will join us in London next year." Unfortunately, this was the last time any of them saw Susie alive. Corning, Crystal City, famous for its glass industry, but it began with lumber rafting down the Chemung River. Painted posts named for a monument placed at the junction of 3 rivers, the Chemung, Tioga, and Connaughton, known to all the 6 nations as the burial place of a distinguished warrior wounded in one of the border battles of the Revolutionary War. The post stood for many years after the settlement of the county, but eventually it rotted down at the butt. It is said to have been preserved in the bar room of a tavern until about 1810, and then mysteriously disappeared. It's also said to have been swept away in a freshet. The Lackawanna schedule, published in the Campbell Herald for Friday, June 23rd, 1893, has the westbound train at the station at 7:02 a.m. Savona. The Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Railroad was completed through Savona in 1882, providing direct competition with the Erie Railroad, which opened in Savona in 1852. The opening of a second major railroad convinced a majority of the residents that the town would continue to grow and need its own government. May of 1883, Savona became a village corporation. Bath. The town was founded in 1793, part of a land investment by wealthy Briton William Pulteney, named after Bath in England, where he owned extensive estates. Canona, a hamlet northwest of Bath Village. The name of the post office was changed from Kennedyville to Canona in 1852. The name then adopted was the Indian designation of 5 Mile Creek and means rusty water. Avoca. First settler arrived around 1794. At that time, the area was home to the Seneca Indians. Wallace, a hamlet in the township of Avoca. The Cohocton Valley was one of the best Indian hunting grounds until forests were cut down. The streams dried up and most of the animals moved to other places. For many years there were no deer in this part of the state. Cohocton. The town was first settled around 1794, known as Liberty. Cohocton was formed from Bath and Dansville in 1812. Part of the town was later used to form new towns in the county. Atlanta, a hamlet in the northeast part of Cohocton, formerly known as Bloods. It was founded around 1840. The Cohocton River changes from an east flowing to south flowing at Atlanta. The settlement of the township was slow at first. There were many dangers and hardships: bears, bobcats, panthers, lynxes, wolves, and rattlesnakes. Wayland, incorporated in 1877, the village grew after it was selected as a station on the Erie Railroad. Perkinsville, from 1882 to 1963, Perkinsville was on the New York, Hoboken to Buffalo Main line of the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Railroad. 1882 to 1960. Tracks were removed through Perkinsville in 1963 by order of the United States Interstate Commerce Commission to promote highway transportation. Dansville. The town was formed along with the county in 1796, but was not settled until around 1804. A spa in the Castle on the Hill opened in 1854. It drew prominent people for the water cure. The Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Railroad opened its main line high above Dansville on September 17, 1882. To the dismay of local businessmen, the Dansville station was more than a mile up the steep hill. Groveland. The Sullivan Expedition, 1779, reached its further extent here, the site of the Boyd and Parker ambush. The first settlement occurred in 1792 and was called Williamsburg. The town was formed in 1789 before the creation of Livingston County, and part of Groveland was used to form parts of the towns of Canisius and Sparta. Mount Morris, first settled around 1784, was known as Allen's Hill and then as Richmond Hill. The town was formed from the town of Leicester in 1818. The former Genesee Valley Canal passed through the town. The area had three major Seneca villages: Little Beardstown, Big Tree, and Squawky Hill. These settlements were targets of the Sullivan expedition. Little Beard, or Spear Hanging Down, was a Seneca chief on the side of Great Britain. His village, Little Beardstown, consisted of about 130 houses. Little Beard participated in the Cherry Valley Massacre of 1778 and presided over the torture and death of Boyd and Parker, captured scouts of the Sullivan expedition. Subsequently, Little Beardstown was destroyed by the American forces. Mary Jemison, and a resident of the village, fled with the natives to a more secure village. The modern town of Collierville was built at the spot. Little Beard was one of the Seneca chiefs signing the Treaty of Cononagua in 1794. He was also a signatory to the Treaty of Big Tree in 1797. He died as the result of injuries received during a brawl at a tavern in 1806. East Bethany. Bethany was set off from the town of Batavia on June 8, 1812. The first town meeting was held April 8, 1813, consisting of members of several small communities, including Bethany Center, East Bethany, West Bethany, Little Canada, Linden, and Putnam Settlement. Genesee Country, the farthest western region of New York State, comprising the Genesee Valley and westward to the Niagara River, Lake Erie, and the Pennsylvania line. The tract was a 3,250,000 acre portion of the Phelps and Gorham Purchase that lay west of the Genesee River. It was purchased from Robert Morris by the Holland Land Company. One of the provisions of the sale was that Morris needed to settle the Indian title to the land, so he arranged for his son, Thomas Morris, to negotiate with the Iroquois at Geneseo, New York. About 3,000 Iroquois, mostly Senecas, arrived for the negotiation. Seneca chief and orator Red Jacket was adamantly against the sale, but his influence was thwarted by freely distributed liquor and trinkets given to the women. In the end, he acquiesced and signed a Treaty of Big Tree. The tribe sold their rights to the land, except for a small portion, for $100,000. Mary Jemison, known as the White Woman of the Genesee, proved to be an able negotiator for the tribe and helped win more favorable terms for them. The land was then surveyed under the supervision of Joseph Ellicott, the biggest land survey ever attempted to that time. Ellicott, as agent of the company, established a land office in Batavia in 1802. The entire purchase was named Genesee County, with Batavia as the county seat. The company sold parcels until 1846, when the company was dissolved. The phrase "doing a land office business" dates from this era. Lancaster. In 1803, the Holland Land Company sold its first plot of land in the future town. The town of Lancaster was formed from the town of Clarence in 1833. The town was named after Lancaster, Massachusetts, but the reason for applying this name is not known. Originally called Cayuga Creek, the town later incorporated and obtained the current name. And so, the morning of July 15, 1895, Twain slouched into Buffalo for a 2-hour layover. This was the last time he ever visited Buffalo, where he had once lived as a newlywed, a first-time father, and a newspaper owner and managing editor. His old Buffalo friend, Charles M. Underhill, collected Twain, his wife Olivia, and daughter Clara by carriage at the Exchange Street station. Underhill whisked the women off for a quick visit with his wife Emma. Twain had read about the spectacular marble and granite Blucher Memorial in Forest Lawn and wanted to see it, hoping to write an article about it. According to Underhill, the monument did not stir him, and Twain dismissed it as a possible subject for a story. On the carriage ride from the cemetery back to Underhill's house, a dejected Twain confided that he hadn't anything more to write about, and that he had got to the end. An hour or so later, Twain and family returned to Buffalo's train station and proceeded to Cleveland.